Republican Senator Ron Johnson was on, let's see, Milwaukee radio station WISN, and this is what he had to say about the Capitol attack.
Well, one thing, and this will get me in trouble, but I don't care. Again, I condemn what happened. I mean, it was reprehensible. Never should have happened. But there were groups of agitators that were at the tip of the spear that caused that. Not the tens of thousands of Trump supporters who would never even contemplate that. And quite honestly, where the video was edited, where people were helping police. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, this didn't seem as like an armed insurrection to me. I mean, armed. When you hear of armed, don't you think of firearms? Here's questions I would have liked to ask: how many firearms were confiscated? How many shots were fired? I'm only aware of one, and I'll defend that law enforcement officer for taking that shot. It was a tragedy, okay? But I think there was only one. You know, if that was a planned armed insurrection, man, you're really a bunch of idiots.
Ben?
You know, you have to compare this to an abusive relationship. The easiest way to understand this is when a person is in trouble, they will genuflect, they would dance, they would do everything they can to spin it and turn it back on you. And this is what's happening. Republicans know that they are guilty. And so in order for them to never be held responsible, think of the abusive individual, whoever your significant individual was in your life that was abusive, this is what they're doing. They can spin, it is brilliant. He can spin on the dime and shift his position from the angle in which he's arguing, right? Because in one instance, he's got to condemn gun violence, and then the next instance, he's going to support the police officer because he knows that resonates well with his base. They are brilliant, they are masterminds, and they are gaslighting the hell out of America.
Yeah, 100% are. And you at least get, with all of his little evasions, that there's a little bit of worry about how Americans viewed that. Partly in that, oh no, I condemn it. Obviously, I don't like it. Now let me go on to my main point, which is that it's really not a big deal, everybody. But then there's also the one potential landmine of the cop was totally right. Whatever the cop did, whatever any cop does really is right. So that was right. But I mean, armed insurrection, come on. I mean, it didn't succeed. And this has to be pure speculation, but if it had succeeded and they'd killed, Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence and they destroyed the ballots and that had actually allowed Trump to declare a state of emergency and stay in office, would Ron Johnson be opposing that? I'm not thinking so. I don't know for sure. But anyway, in terms of it, just the fact that they failed, okay, sure, attempted murder is still a crime though. Intent matters. Like, do you remember the video that went viral of Ted Cruz and he was trying to dribble basketball between his legs and he hit himself in the balls? He still wanted to dribble between his legs. Bruised testicles don't mean that intent doesn't matter. Just because you suck doesn't mean it doesn't count, Ted Cruz or the insurrectionists. It's really more about the insurrectionists.
Right.
It still matters. And by the way, Ron Johnson, they did have guns, okay? In court filings, officials have said that guns, bombs, stun guns, and other weapons were seized from rioters. 14 people faced charges related to bringing weapons to the riot, including an Alabama man who allegedly had an arsenal in his truck, and a Maryland man who police say stormed the Capitol with a gun, multiple magazines, and a bulletproof vest. There were people who brought Molotov cocktails. There were people who planted bombs. There were all sorts of, if what you want are weapons, they had weapons for you. You have to do quite a bit of work to pretend that wasn't there. And that is just about the only work that Ron Johnson is willing to do in this area.
No, you're outlining it so perfectly because it's the disingenuousness of it all, right? There's no level to which these people will not go to lie. They know weapons were there, but if they have to say weapons weren't there, oh, no problem. They are equal into the task of telling every lie necessary for them to get away from being held responsible for this.
Yeah. Well, we have a little bit more Ron Johnson. Why don't we roll that?
I mean, I'm sitting back in my office watching video of the armed insurrectionists staying within the lines inside the Capitol. They're not even venturing outside of the roped areas, right? I'm seeing a bunch of people milling about. It wasn't until I really saw the video in the trial that you really saw, what was happening and how officers got injured.
Okay, so no, it should not have taken until the video in the trial. The whole country was watching on the 6th in real time, watching all of that. But so which is it? Because in this video, he's like, well, I was watching and they were coloring within the lines or whatever. And then during the trial, I saw this footage, which by the way, didn't change your mind. You still voted to acquit Trump and you would have not had the impeachment at all. But you also still don't think it's an armed insurrection. So which was it, that you saw this horrifying footage of them trying to tear cops limb from limb? Or it was just a couple of chuckleheads who got hopped up on, like moonshine and just wandered in where they weren't supposed to be? He really does want to play it every which way with this.
Right. And he's a master at it. And so is the majority of the Republican Party. They know how to do this on the turn of a dime. Like they can shift their argument in any direction necessary to never be held accountable. And to be honest with you, the only way you can get away from that type of gaslighting is we have to beat them. We literally are going to have to beat them at every single stop. We have to get super majorities, because otherwise we're going to be dancing around the fact that there's no limit to the gaslighting that they're willing to do to this country.
Yeah, we need those super majorities to beat them, but we also need it to beat Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. Like, man, we have to win at so many levels to ever actually kind of win. I don't want to hear his voice anymore. But so here's a little bit more of Ron Johnson from the radio show. That one guy in the Senate chamber had plastic wrist ties. What was he supposed to do? Go up to Mike Pence and capture him? It's absurd. He also said that he was literally never afraid during the riots and questioned whether lawmakers should have feared the mob. An armed insurrection? No, this was a breach. What? You breach castle walls, you breach bunkers. Breach is bad. You suck at even like coming up with euphemisms. That's really bad. It's not an insurrection. They just cracked the rib cage open and tore out the heart. No, that's still bad. That's a bad thing. And look at all of what he fit in there. What's he supposed to do? Go up and capture Mike Pence?
Yes.
They were chanting that that's what they wanted to do. They were pretty clear about that. They wanted to, they wanted to wrist tie him. They also wanted to put something around his neck too, and that's a little bit more serious. And then of course they fit in a bit of the AOC was being hysterical. What an emotional woman to be afraid when lots of people were afraid. Nancy Mace was talking about how now she's gonna be packing heat when she goes to the Capitol because she was afraid. People were afraid, okay? They were rampaging through. They would have gladly killed any number of different politicians if they gotten their hands on them. So Ron Johnson, again, as we've been saying, he's dancing around and he's playing, like he's playing a whole bunch of games. But the end result is that he definitely wants you to come out of this experience thinking that the 6th wasn't a big deal. And you certainly shouldn't be that mad at Trump or anyone else who contributed to it.
John, you have to, I think if we need to really consider how far this country is willing to go to protect white supremacy, right? If you think, had this been any other group, had this been leftists, had this been Black Lives Matter, had this been any group that is not sanctioned, basically white Christian men in this country, like Bill O'Reilly said, they would have gunned down every single person getting that close to the power structure of this country, right? But they are so willing to help and coddle and protect white supremacy that they let white supremacy go into places and threaten this leadership structure like we've never seen anybody else. Had this been any other group, we would have been obliterated before we got up the steps.
Definitely. And in hindsight, even though it wasn't those groups, they are like Lindsey Graham, like there's whataboutism and all that about BLM and about the Capitol attacks. But Lindsey Graham is saying that because Kamala Harris bailed out some protester somewhere, he's not just saying that's kind of like inciting the mob. He's saying she should be impeached. He voted to acquit Trump, but he thinks Kamala Harris should be impeached, which is like whataboutism or both sidesism really doesn't encapsulate. It's normally intended to say, let's not have any standard whatsoever because lots of people do lots of things.
Yeah.
But he's saying we should have a harsher standard for the woman who bailed out some protester if at a different protest with different people in a different state, a different month, something happened that I'm going to imply is like the Capitol attack, even though again, no politician actually encouraged this. It's really sick. It's like both sidesism has gone Super Saiyan. It is way stronger than the normal level that they do that.
Yeah, it's a whole new level, John. I've never seen anything like this where Lindsey Graham knows full well what he's doing, and I think that these politicians think that nobody sees them or that nobody actually cares, but we see the lies, and hey, that's all I should say. We see the lies, Lindsey.
We see, and we're cataloging, and thankfully some people are watching. But Trump did walk. We're gonna see.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.